Welcome back, guys. What I thought I would do, since I've had a lot of questions about how to do the Architect install and also to do the install of Linux GT, I'm going to go through a hardware install using my Chromebook as an example. Now, in order to do that, basically what I did is I booted into a USB stick with Peppermint OS 6, and I'm going to use this just to gain access to gparted so I can format my drive. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to find gparted on the and there it is. Now, of course, this Chromebook only has one hard drive. So in order to be able to, and let's see, that's not coming out too good. Let me see if I can make an adjustment. Hold on, guys, I'll see if I can make this a little bit clearer. Okay, guys, I hope you can see this screen. Now, one of the things I was planning on doing a petitioning for UEFI, but as I forgot, the Chromebook is not capable of a UEFI. It automatically defaults to a legacy install. So right now I have an install, a Linux install on the hard drive. It is the only hard drive that I have at the present time. So I have a couple of choices. I can shrink the ext4 petition and install Architect or Arch Linux through Architect, install it there using the same swap file, and I can have the bootloader installed onto the root drive, which is what I have now. So I think that's what I'm going to do. And then once I repetition, I'm going to reboot into the Architect installer and walk through the install with you. So let's see how that goes from here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this petition, click on it, and I'm going to resize it. And as you can see, now you can only do this if you only have one hard drive. You're going to have to find a way to access that hard drive without it being mounted. So the only way to do that on this particular Chromebook is to boot up from a live USB and do it while booted into the USB. So we're going to shrink the petition. Okay, and so we'll go down to about half and half. Okay, so I'm going to say resize, and that's all I'm going to do. Well, actually, I'm going to format a ext4. Okay, so we'll petition new ext4 add, and then I'm going to click the arrow to execute. Okay, this is going to be a little tricky. Okay, so now that's going through the execution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave what I have alone, and I'm going to end up dual booting. I believe I have apricity on there on the SDA1. So I'm going to install Architect on the new petition. Now before Once this is done, and it's going to take a little while because I'm shrinking one of the petitions to make room. But once this is done, then I'll boot from the Architect installer USB and we'll go through the installation. And what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to write down the device designations so that when I go through the Architect installer, I can tell the installer where to mount my root and where to mount my swap and where to go with the boot petition, where grub is going to be installed. So now the operations have completed successfully. I'm going to close, and so you'll see now I'm going to be installing on SDA3. So when you go through this process, make sure you write down those designations, and my swap is SDA2. Now I'm going to do the root on SDA3, but I'm going to do the boot also. So make sure that you're clear on exactly what your drive designations are before you boot up Architect. Okay, so I'm going to shut down this computer and I'm going to reboot from the Architect installer. So I'm going to pause the video for a second. Okay, so as you can see, I've booted and now I'm at the boot menu. It's giving me a choice of booting from the USB number 1 or the hard drive number 2 because I still have my operating system on the hard drive. So I'm going to press 1 and now I am at the Architect installer and I am going to pick the first option, okay, because I'm installing on a 64-bit. So I'm going to select the first option. And hopefully you'll be able to see this okay. Okay, so it's telling me to please wait. Now it's asking me to choose my Wi-Fi, Ethernet or Wi-Fi, and I'm going to select Wi-Fi and hopefully it configures my Wi-Fi card. So it's scanning for networks, and it did. It picked up all of the networks available. So I'm going to sign into and it's now it's asking me for the security key. Prior to the screen before that was just asking me if I wanted to change the name, and I did not. So now it is connecting to my Wi-Fi. It's asking me if I want to install the stable version or the development version. Now I'm going to go with the stable version. So now it is asking me to pick my language. The top one, hopefully you can see that, is English. I'm going to select that. So basically what it did then is it made sure that I was connected to Wi-Fi, because now it is synchronizing all of the databases. And it's telling me that the installer will download the latest packages. And we're going to go through all of the menus. Okay, so now we're going to prepare the installation. There's a whole list of options that need to be completed. So we're going to press enter, and the first one is set the virtual console. And this is as simple as just scrolling down and selecting basically your country. So all the way down the end you see US, and I'm going to highlight it and then press enter. Okay, step 2, configure the installer mirror list. Okay, I'm going to generate the list by country. So I'm going to select option 1, and then I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and select United States. So then I'm going to select OK. Now it's generating a mirror list, and basically it uncommented all of the United States mirror lists. So, and I know that's a little bit difficult to see, but all it requires at this point is for you to hit Control X to save the file. And it's going to then ask you if you want to use the generated mirror list for the installer, and you're going to say yes. So that's done. Now, since we went through the mirror list, we're going to go back because we've already generated the mirror list, we've accepted it, so we're going to go back. Now, here you can click on list devices. It is optional. What it does, and I'm going to enter it, it gives you a list of the devices on your machine. So up the top it's showing me my Chromebook hard drive, and then the bottom it is showing me my USB drive. Now, as I mentioned before, I want to install my root and boot on SDA2. I'm sorry, on SDA3, and my swap is on SDA2. Okay? So we're going to exit this because we know what our designations are. So now we're going to go to step 4, petition the disk. Now I'm not going to go through that because my disk is already petitioned. I don't need number 5 because it's optional for logical volume management. But since my petitions are already created, I'm going to go and just mount the petitions. So go down to number 6, hit enter. Now you see it's asking you to select your root petition. This is the petition where Arch will be installed. Now my root petition is going to be SDA3. So it's as simple as going down, highlighting SDA3, and hit enter. And then it's going to ask you what file system you want, and of course you want ext4. And the mount was successful. Now it's asking about a swap file. I already have a swap file, so I'm going to designate SDA2, which was my swap file, and I'm going to press enter. Now it's going to ask any additional petitions in any order or done to finish. I'm going to click done because I only needed the 2. I'm going to be able to designate SDA3 as my boot petition a little bit later. Okay, so we're going back and we're going to install the base. Now here you're going to just hit enter on option 1 to refresh Pac-Man keys, and it'll go through the refresh on that. Okay, now we're going to install the base. That's step number 2. We're going to select latest kernel and base devel. Okay, number 2. Press enter. So this is going to go through quite a lengthy process of installing Arch onto your root petition. And it is lengthy, so I'm going to pause the video and I'll be right back with you. Okay guys, so I am back. Now at the tail end of the install, it installed some supplementary wireless packages. So we're at the step now where we're going to install the bootloader. So we just installed the base, we're going to install the bootloader, option 3. I'm going to, now it's asking you if you want Grub 2 or Sys Linux. I'm going to take Grub 2. Install Grub on the same device hard drive as root. Pick yes. Okay, so that's what I want. I'm going to install it on. It is the only drive I have, so that's where it's going. Okay, so now we're going to install wireless device firmware. Now, it says when you're unsure if additional firmware is required, then all of them can be installed. So I am going to select all. So since I installed all of them, now I'm going to just go back. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to, now we just installed the base, now I'm going to configure the base. So we're on that step 3. So I'm going to generate the fstab, and now for UUID is recommended. So that's what I'm going to select. Number 3, UUID. I'm going to set a host name. That'll be Arch. Or you can change that to Architect. We're going to set a time zone. And that's America. And mine happens to be New York. So I'm going to scroll down to the ends. And there it is. Press enter. It's going to ask me to confirm. Set time zone as America. Yes. Set the hardware clock to UTC. The only time you would normally want local time is if you were dual booting with Windows. We're going to set system locale, and basically we're going to go down to EN, and then for me, English US, right there. ENUS UTF -8. Enter. Set desktop keyboard layout, and that's going to be US. Let's see. US English. Okay? Then we're going to go back. Now we're going to configure user accounts. So we're going to set a root password. We're going to re-enter it. Then I'm going to add a new user. And I'm going to set a password for Len. Okay. Now we're going to go back. Now we're not going to install a desktop because LinuxGT will install all of the desktop information for you. So we're going to leave that alone. If you were not going to install LinuxGT, then you would select your desktop. But let's go back 1 second. Click on that anyway because we're going to need to install graphics input and sound drivers. So we're not going to install a desktop environment, but we're going to do a couple of other things here, okay? So click on that and then select number 1. and then click OK. It's going to go through and install basically graphics and sound drivers, codecs, things like that. So we're going to let it do its thing. It's not going to take too long, and then it'll bring us back to we'll have to go back to that menu to do a couple more things. And this should be just about done. Okay, now I have built-in Intel graphics. Is your graphics card or virtualization software Intel? Select yes to install open source driver. Select no to open the graphics card menu, which includes proprietary NVIDIA drivers. Now, if you have any type of proprietary driver, you would select no. So you can select your driver. So you'll need to know what model sound card you have. But in my case, this is integrated graphics, and I'm going to select yes to install open source. Okay, so now as I mentioned, we're not going to do a desktop environment, but we are going to do we're going to install a network connection manager. And here, normally you would select Network Manager in most cases for a GUI, but what I'd like you to do here is select number 2, DHCP-CD. It's a command line Network Manager, but when you finish the install, it's going to automatically install the Graphical Network Manager. So just select number 2. Okay, now the Network Connection Manager has been installed and enabled. Now it says install Display Manager login screen, and we're not going to do that. We're going to just select go back. Okay, accessibility packages are optional. If you have any accessibility issues, you'll want to select something from here. I don't know what they all are because I have no need for any of them, but if you do, just select what you need. If you're not sure and you want to install them, you can install them all. I'm not going to install any at this point, so I'm just going to go back. So accessibility packages is number 6. Number 7, we're going to run make init cpio, and that's a Linux process that needs to be run before the install is completed. So we're going to run that. Now we can review the configuration files. That is optional. I don't normally do that, so I'm just going to say done. Now we're going to close the installer, and I'm going to reboot. Now if all goes well, this should give me 2 boot options. That's because I still have the CD in, so I'm going to reboot and pull that out. Okay, so I have the new Arch Linux and my other Arch Linux. So you can see I have 2 options. This is plain vanilla Arch Linux, and this is the Apricity that I have also. So I've got a dual boot situation, just like I expected. And what we're going to do now, I'm going to select Arch Linux, and it should boot into a command prompt. There's my login. I am going to log in. Okay, and I have Arch Linux installed. Simple as that. Now, the fun part. we're going to install Linux GT. But for that, I'm gonna bring up the installation on my computer, on my other computer, so we can because I don't have it all memorized, so we'll be able to walk through it together. So I'm gonna pause the video for a second. Okay, guys. So your first, once you're at your Arch, you signed into Arch, and you're at the prompt. The first command you're gonna do is to test to make sure that you have your internet active. And so we're going to do it by trying to use pacman. So you're going to do sudo pacman minus capital S small y. Now it's going to ask you for your root password, and it's telling me that I do not have internet. So I'm going to pause the video for a second. Okay, guys, I'm back. I got the Ethernet or the wireless configured. If you have any issues with that, let me know. But I will tell you, before you reboot, it'd be a good idea to download and you well, you'll need to follow the directions in Midfinger's video, where he shows you at the end of the, well, let me see if I can give you the commands.
Back and
Okay, so
done,
basically at the
So
end of
that
your Arch install, it'll ask you whether you want to reboot or go into a console. Click on go into a console, and then once you get into the
what that
console,
did was
you're
automatically
going to have to
partition, but that's like the partition
mount
flash.
the
So that's fine.
ch
So
root.
Alt
So
and T don't
basically you're going to type sudo space mount mount space, and let me see if I can type this out for you. Sudo mount space / dev, and then your partition. In my case, it was SDA3. Then a space, and then / mount. And then once you type that in, I'm not going to do that now because I've already rebooted, but once you type that in and hit enter, then you will type arch -ch root space / mount, and you may have to put a sudo in front of that. Once you do that, you'll be at a different prompt, but you'll have your install mounted, so anything you download will be installed. And what you want to do, you want to type sudo pacman dash capital S dialog wireless underscore tools WPA underscore supplicant supplicant, and I would also do gnome keyring, gnome slash keyring, because that hung me up one time. So once you install those, then you will reboot. Okay, so once you reboot, you're at your login prompt, as I am. You have Arch installed, but you don't have any graphical environment. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow the directions to install LinuxGT. So I'm going to pause the video for a second because I want to check something. So I'll be right back. Okay guys, so the next thing you want to do is you need to install Git. So it's going to be sudo pacman dash capital S space GIT. So go ahead and install that. Okay. And then your next command,
Clone.
and you're going to type this exactly the way I tell you, okay?
Tab deletion here. Sorry.
It's GIT
HTTPS, as mentioned,
space
and then
clone
github.com,
space
that's universal, and then the username
HTTPS
with
colon 2 GitHub GITHUB .com /midfinger MIDFINGR
finger slash
/
GT
Linux
and press enter. And it'll take a little bit of
GT.
time, not too long to download. As I said, it's about
Okay,
80 megabytes or so.
so git
Okay, so it's getting
clone.
downloaded, and just ls, and you see Linux GT's there, and you can
I
ls.
think I might have an extra space here. Yeah. So git space clone space HTTPS colon / GitHub GITHUB.com / midfinger MIDFINGR / LinuxGT LINUXGT, and then you're going to hit enter. Now it's going to go through the installation process. It will take a few minutes, so I'm going to, well, no, it's done. Alright, so our next command,
Directory, okay?
let's see.
And all we have to do is, you can see a whole bunch of directories, but all you have to do is just a chmod and plus x
Okay, so we need to type
linuxgt
chmod
/ins for install.
chmod, then the plus sign, x space Linux GT /ins. Okay, then hit enter. And then once you're there,
Press enter.
you're going to type LinuxGT / INS. Okay, LinuxGT / INS, and then hit enter. Now it's going to go through the install process, and it's going to take a little bit. So I'm going to pause the video, and then I'll be back with you. Okay guys, so when you're done with the install, you should be looking at this message here. But basically that was a couple of reminders that Midfinger left for himself to edit a couple of files, and that's not something that I did. I just left that alone, and so I'm gonna just hit OK. Now as you can see, we're at a prompt. Okay guys, so when you get to this prompt, after you've clicked on OK, you're going to get to this prompt. Do not reboot. You're going to run one more command, and you're going to type in Linux GT / AUR _ INS. Okay, so that's Linux GT, and I think I've got one too many U's here. So Linux LINUXGT / AUR _ INS.
Enter.
And then you'll hit enter.
So you can see that. All right, and then press enter. And it takes some time to load some packages. And these are the Arch Linux user repository packages, which I just compiled and uploaded.
Okay, and just wait for it to do its thing. It's loading packages.
Chances are they won't fail in building, hopefully. So just let it run, and it'll take a little bit of time.
Now you're going to
so
click yes to proceed with installation.
So issue a reboot or a shutdown if you want to remove any media you have, and log into Linux GT.
So it's going to go through and basically install some remaining packages that need to be installed before you reboot. So just let that run through the installation process. This one shouldn't take too long, and it should put you back at a control prompt, a console prompt, and then we'll be rebooting. But let's stay with me while we finish this last step. So now it is at the cursor at the root prompt, and now we should be ready to reboot. Now when you reboot, you're going to be at the Linux GT login screen. So guys, I'm going to pause the video and I'll be right back with you. Okay guys, so this is what you should be looking at right now, is the Linux GT sign-in screen. You see my name there, and I'm going to enter my password, and we should be booting into the first screen. And so that is the full installation, guys. I hope you found it helpful. Sorry for the poor video quality, but it was pretty difficult to do this with the camera looking at a Chromebook. But hopefully I took it slow enough where you were able to get through the install. Now, don't forget that you'll need to go over to your Let's see, I think it's in your desktop folder. See that in your desktop? This documentation? Make sure you read every one of these. You want to especially pay attention to the post install and the post install addendum. So go through those there are multiple commands in there to deal with some issues that remain in order to clean up the install some codecs, and get everything to the point where you can use it on a daily basis. So make sure you go through the post install and the post install addendum. Read through. Um, I When I did the first install, I made the mistake of not doing this, and I wondered why it was running kind of funky. And that's why. So, guys, and don't forget to update, because there are some updates available already, as you can see. And let's see, that's so you can see I've got some updates to apply. Oops. This is getting crazy now. Hold on one second. Okay, looks like I've got a download library error, so I'll take care of that. But guys, you should be fine now with your install. Hope you enjoyed. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Again, sorry for the crappy video quality, but it was the only way I could do this and walk you through all of the steps. So I hope you have your Linux GT up and running. And please rate, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you soon. Take care, guys.